Hello, everybody. Apa kabar? Welcome to Virtually Peranakan Fest 2024. My name is Baba Alvin Un from Peranakan Sayang, hosting this festival from Singapore. This is our 5th year presenting this online festival featuring all things Peranakan from around the region. A big hello to everyone watching this program right now. Hello! Do say hello and share your views or ask questions in the comments section. We certainly hope you will enjoy the program. So do like and follow our Peranakan Sayang Facebook page or subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have yet to do so. And you haven't done so, why? Better subscribe now, Cepat, Okay, dude, we'd like to thank you for supporting our efforts in keeping our Baba Nyonya communities connected and our culture alive and kicking. So right now, it's my pleasure to bring on my kaki, our co-host for this festival. He is from Malacca. We're going to bring on Baba Cedric Tan. Hello, Baba.
Hello. Thank you again. Welcome back, everybody. Yeah.
This is our one and only panel session for today in this festival. It's going to be a very interesting one.
Definitely. We're talking about the issue about identity. Who are you?
Bring out your
whether
identity.
You know who are you yourself or not.
So we have a great 3 panelists joining us this afternoon. Would you like to introduce them?
Yeah, definitely. We'd like to thank all these 3 panelists for gracing our panel session today. So why not? Let's bring them on.
Yes. Which one you want to bring on first?
Let's bring on well, ladies also can we start off with the youngest first lah.
Youngest lah.
Youngest first.
Tak tahu.
I don't know.
I guess it's from Malacca lah.
Let's bring someone nearer to home first lah, my house first, yeah.
Okay. So we have Tien, Baba Tien.
Hi.
Apa khabar, Baba Tien?
Hi.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Baba Tien.
Yeah, Baba Tien. So let me just quickly give you a background about Baba Tien. Baba Tien is our very young panelist here, a 5th generation Baba, who is now currently the manager in the Baba Nyonya Heritage Museum of Malacca. Also, the vice president of the Persatuan Peranakan Baba Nyonya Malaysia, and the author of the Baba and Nyonya Renaissance Identity, Maintenance, and Shift. So someone is very, very familiar with the issue of identity.
Yes. And keeping in Malaysia, we've got to bring on Dr. Puey Giok Hun.
Yes, Dr. Puey.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Puey. Baik.
Baik, sihat saja. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a quick introduction to Dr. Puey. Dr. Puey Giok Hun is a research fellow in the Institute of Ethnic Study, University Kebangsaan of Malaysia, and anthropologist by training. Her research interests revolve on ethnic identity formation and negotiations amongst minority ethnic groups within the mixed race and the Peranakan phenomena in Malaysia, with particular focus on the Peranakan Chinese communities in the east coast of Malaysia, the Kelantan and Terengganu states.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting, yeah?
And now we come and introduce my fellow Singaporean, Dr. Nala. Hello.
Hi everyone. Apa khabar?
Baik, Dr. Nala. Okay, for those of you not familiar with Dr. Nala, just a quick introduction, yeah? Dr. Nala Lee, is a Singaporean linguist and an associate professor at the English Linguistic and Theatre Study Department of the National University of Singapore. Peranakan by birth and very, very much interested in endangered heritage language, especially the Baba Malay. And she seeks to understand language change brought by multilingualism, with specific areas of interest lying in language endangerment, language death, language documentation, Creole, typography, and sociolinguistics. Wow.
Yeah. Banyak sih.
No need to read everything. Yeah, no need to read everything.
No. of 2 or 3 lines only, yeah, and those are the ones worthy of mentioning, yeah.
Yeah, actually a lot more lah. We already censored the rest, so
Because this is really definitely a stellar appearance of we call it the next generation of identity. We call it researchers in this part of the world. So and we definitely want to hear out, yeah, from this batch of we call it researchers. So maybe we can talk about, first of all, who is actually a peranakan. Yeah, and here I think we can start off with Baba Lee, because he has prepared a few slides for us to look into, to ponder. So perhaps we can start off with Baba Tian.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Cedric, and also Alvin, for the introduction, and also nice meeting the other two fellow panelists. Yeah, my first time seeing two of you. Okay, now when we talk about the Peranakan identity, we will often ask, especially us who are from the Peranakan community itself, we will often ask about our identity. How do we identify ourselves and also members of our community? Because why nowadays the Nyonyas, they don't really dress in kebaya anymore. Although kebaya, few days ago just got the acknowledgement
UNESCO.
of UNESCO recognition. Yeah, but then the fact is that today, how many of us still dons on the kebaya on the daily basis? That was why I ended up doing a research on the current day Baba Nyonya identity. Yeah. Can I have the next slide? Okay, now if you look at the identity of our community, the Baba and Nyonya, we have often have got this misperception that we are actually descendants of the union between Putri Hang Lipo and the Sultan of Malacca. Yeah, and then also they often have this misunderstanding that we were actually a group of people who, yes, have adapted to the Malay lifestyle. And then, when I introduce myself as Baba Nyonya, people often ask that, hey, so do you celebrate Hari Raya? Do you take pork? This kind of misunderstanding. So that was why, it transpired me to actually take up on this task to look into our identity. And then along the way, it's very difficult for us to actually define who are these Baba and Nyonya, or in a sentence, it's very hard for us to define. However, we got no choice but to simplify it when we meet people. So I would first and foremost explain to them that, oh, Baba and Nyonya are actually a group of acculturated minority that commonly found in the Straits settlement. When I say commonly found, it's not only available in the Straits settlements, because why? We must also not forget those in the East Coast, those in Kelantan and Terengganu, as well as, of course, they don't call themselves Baba and Nyonya. Perhaps correct me if I'm wrong. They would identify themselves as Peranakan or Cina Kampung, as I was told. And then also those in Phuket, Indonesia as well. Yeah. So we must not discount them. Yeah. And at the same time also, I would say that, all of us share this one similar trait, that is, I would say we are actually a localized form of Chinese. Why? Because when we say in Malacca, for instance, they would say that, oh, the Baba and Nyonya are actually a group of Chinese who are very Malay informed. They speak Malay at home, eating using their fingers and stuff like that. However, it would not be fair to use that definition to define those who are in Penang, for instance, because they don't speak Malay. To be fair, they actually converse in Hokkien. They call it Baba Hokkien. Yeah, so then again, if we say that, oh, Malay speaking Chinese, then it would not be fair, right? Even to those in Phuket, they don't speak Malay at all. the babas in Phuket is converse in the Thai language, of course. So I would say a localized Chinese would be a better definition. Why? You localize to your environment, like those in the East Coast, in Terengganu and Kelantan, they enjoy eating their khao yam or khao jam, the nasi ulam, more than us in the south. Yeah, we have nasi ulam, but we don't put pudu inside, unlike those in the East Coast. So it's localized to their respective environment. Same goes for those in Phuket. They will cook more Thai-style cooking compared to us here, where we use more, like for example in Malacca, we are very much influenced by Javanese, our Javanese neighbor. So the cooking is more to lemak and sweet, whereas if we compare to those Nyonyas in Penang, their cooking will be more to soury, more like Thai spicy, more like Thai cooking. Okay. Now, the next slide, I know I don't have much time, so I better not elaborate more. Okay, now when we talk of the origins of this group of Peranakan or Baba and Nyonya, there's always these ongoing arguments. Malaccans always very proud, say, oh, it started from Malacca. But then, is it true? Or is it from Singapore, or is it from Penang? Yeah, I would say that, true, but at the same time, not entirely true. Yeah, because why? If you look at history, Malacca started off about, has got about 500 years of history. Yeah, to compared to Penang, modern Penang, and also Singapore. Yeah, they have probably got about 200 plus years of history. Yeah, if we look at this timeline, of course, the Malaccans will say, oh, the Peranakans originated from Malacca. However, yeah, we are not sure whether the Peranakans in Singapore and in Penang, they all came from Malacca or not. How about those in Phuket? Even those in Kelantan and Terengganu, are they from Malacca? I was told that those in Kelantan has got longer history compared to us in Malacca. Okay, so but what we can clearly say that we are actually descendants of the very early Chinese migrants who came over to Southeast Asia. Yeah, because if we look at Indonesia, we must not forget, yeah, Indonesia is an older civilization. Yeah, if you look at the Javanese civilization, they were very much older, and they have visited by, there are evidence that Chinese traders have visited Java Island, yeah, as early as about perhaps 900 years ago, when there are evidence that Chinese actually visited, Chinese pilgrims that actually visited Borobudur. Yeah, so these already show proof that there are interactions between China and Southeast Asia as far back as the Borobudur, that Javanese civilization. Okay, so if we look at that, then would we still claim that the Babas and Nyonyas actually originated from Malacca? Say, yeah, if we look at the entire history, it's very difficult for us to argue that part, because we have got another even earlier civilization here in Southeast Asia who has got mixed marriages really happened there. Okay, and lastly, I would say, we are actually a result of this cultural hybridity, where we have got all these different culture, and then like people, when they come to the museum, when they visit the museum, then they would often ask, when they have interview with me, they would ask, so can you describe the architecture of the Baba and Nyonya community? And I was like, okay, what do you mean by that? Because to be fair, we don't have our own architecture to begin with. If you look at it, yes, of course, they call it the Straits Eclectic style. It's actually a borrowed an adaptation of Western architecture blend in with some Chinese taste, Chinese ornaments in it, and it became something known as, or we term it as Straits Agric style. Yeah, in Thailand they call it Portuguese. Okay, so there is this blend, and we proudly say that it's ours, but because it's always referred to as something that would be seen in the Baba Nyonya household. But then again, to say that that is something that we belong to us entirely or solely, I think it would not be fair. Yeah, so I would say that we are actually a group of very hybrid community culture. Yeah, be it in food, our language as well. See? It's like, yep. And then we have got this crisis when we talk about our identity. People have always got this perception, whether are we Chinese or not. Like I've mentioned just now, when I introduced myself as a Baba, especially when I was in the university, those days, my classmates, they would actually ask me, so when you say that you're a Baba, would you identify yourself as a Chinese? Because they have this impression that, Baba has always been a mix. So under today's political scenario, mix, then you say, oh, then you speak Malay at home means you don't take pork lah, you celebrate Hari Raya lah, stuff like that. And then you are often labeled with this OCBC thing where we are orang Cina, bukan Cina. So it comes down to whether is it biological or cultural. Yeah. Initially, when I started off my research, I thought that this Peranakan phenomenon or the Baba and Nyonya is something like a lifestyle. However, I think after I completed my research, I felt that what I thought earlier was wrong. Yeah, actually, I think to be a Baba and Nyonya, it must be both biological and cultural. Yeah, and that I think would answer our question for today. Who are the Baba and Nyonya? Yeah, we are a group of Chinese descendants. I don't deny we have got some mixed parentage along the way, some mixed our ancestry, but at the same time, we live a local lifestyle and not forgetting the heritage of our forefathers. That I think would be very important, and it has been reflected through every aspect of the Baba and Nyonya lifestyle till today.
Right, thanks, Baba Lee. We'll quickly take another perspective, this time from the East Coast side of Malaysia, because they are, I don't think they would call themselves as Baba Nyonyas, but perhaps Cina Peranakan or something like that. So perhaps let's say out from Dr. Pui, who do you think is a Baba? Or for that matter, in Kelantan or Terenggano's perspective, Cheng Mualang?
Okay. Thank you for the question. But before I go to that specific question, maybe I can share a slightly bigger overview. What is Peranakan? Who is a Peranakan? Because we always hear that Peranakan is equivalent to Baba Nyonya equivalent to Peranakan. So if that's the case, then there are Baba Nyonya in East Coast also, in Phuket also, right? But I hope I can make it clear about that issue lah. Like maybe we have heard about Peranakan in Malaysia, but not many people realize that Malaysia has a various Peranakan communities, particularly in the peninsula lah. So there are about 9 Peranakan communities that were mentioned in the past studies and documents. They are Malay-based Peranakan, like the Peranakan Jawi or Arab Peranakan, also known as Arab descendants or keturunan Arab. Those are 2. Malay base. Yeah. There's also Hindu base of Indian Peranakan, as in the case of Melaka Chetty. Okay. There are also Portuguese European based Peranakan, namely the Peranakan Serani. This is the old name, Peranakan Serani, or more well known nowadays as Kristang. And of course, the Chinese based Peranakan communities. There are at least 4 distinctive ones lah. The Penang Peranakan, the Baba Nyonya in Melaka, the Kampung Chinese in Kelantan, also known as the rural Chinese, Cina Kampung, and the Cheng Mualang in Terengganu. Okay. Also, there are other Peranakan communities that we don't really know much about even until now, namely the Samsam Peranakan and the Sikh Peranakan. Yeah, so as you can see from here, right, a Baba or Nyonya is a Peranakan, but a Peranakan does not always refer to a Baba and Nyonya. Why? Because as an everyday Malay word, the Peranakan term originally emerged as a noun for an organ in female reproductive system, the kilang of the next generation, the womb. The root word of Peranakan also related to that, which is anak, which means anak or offspring. In relation to that, one of the old usage for the word Peranakan in Malay language refers to the place where you were born. So let's say, Cedric, if you are born in Melaka, so you are a Peranakan Melaka. If you are born in Johor, you are a Peranakan Johor. Yeah? But since language is dynamic, meaning it changes according to the time, situation, and place, the meaning of the term Peranakan gradually shifted to refer to the local bond of non-native people that live among the locals, especially those who were born from intermarriage between the non-native and the local people. Back then, when the inter-ethnic marriages were widely practiced in the society. Yeah. So later on, only then, the term Peranakan not only refer to the natural biological part of reproduction, but also the nurture or the social cultural part. Yeah. So for me, in a way to respond to Cedric's question earlier on, so the most simplified working word definition of a Peranakan with a capital P, is a term or a proper noun, kata nama khas, to refer to local bonds who are of non-native descent and practices highly localized non-native culture in the region. So since we are in Malaysia, the non-native culture will tend to be the Malay or the local. But for the Thai Peranakan, the local culture will refer to the Siamese. Okay, I stop here first lah. Thank you.
Oh, that's I understand under Dr. Pui's study, there were at least 9 different forms of Peranakan, and she has actually listed some of these Peranakan communities in her slide. That's a good opener, actually. So there are more to just being a Peranakan. Baba Nyonya is probably just one, but of course, there are many other forms of Peranakan. Now, let's bring this whole discussion down to our sister country next door, down south, to Singapore. Dr. Nala, what will be your take? Who is a Baba? Who is a Peranakan?
Okay, thank you so much. I think I learned a lot from Yan Tian's perspective as well as Dr. Pui's perspective. So my answer is more similar to Dr. Pui's perspective, just judging by the linguistic bit of it. So as she said, right, the word Peranakan most probably it might have come from Beranak, to give birth to, and then the womb as well. So anak meaning child. So Peranakan most likely denoted someone who was locally born in the earlier context of Southeast Asia. I'm just going to say earlier. We have to kind of trace that ancestry to earlier, because of course nowadays we also have a lot of intermarriages, especially in Singapore. Intermarriages is a trend, but it doesn't mean that anyone who is native and some foreigner, they get married and then they have this Peranakan culture. Doesn't mean that. So I'm going to kind of put that aside and focus then on culture itself. So blood is important, but culture is also important. So to me, the Peranakanness is strongly defined by culture. So given that, intermarriages among other communities is trend, given that visually we look like everyone else, right? It's not like we are born with green hair and blue eyes or some specific phenotype. So the idea of a phenotype is like if you could identify people based on the way their physical traits, then you would have a phenotype. But Peranakaners doesn't work that way. Visually, we kind of blend in for the Orang Cina, for Peranakan Cina, for example, we blend in with the other Chinese. You can't tell if I'm Cantonese if I walk down the street, right? So, and if I don't talk to you about my culture, you wouldn't know that I'm Peranakan. If you don't hear my story, you wouldn't know that that's my background. So to me, it's really defined by the practice of a culture, whether it be in the language, in the cuisine, the dressing. But I agree with Yuan Tian when he says that not a lot of people practice this culture now. Even with the Kebaya being inscribed by UNESCO and all, it's still kind of like only trotted out for special occasions and not something that people celebrate on an everyday basis. So it's kind of important then, if we want to keep that kind of identity and culture alive together, to kind of think about how to bring these things together. And I think, a more open view of what Peranakaners is might be good as well. So it's not just people who practice the culture, but also people with memory of that culture. So I know friends who would say, I am Baba Nyonya, for example, because I work in the Peranakan Cina community. But they don't necessarily practice it, but they have memories of their grandmother, for example, wearing the baju panjang. Or tying up their hair in a very specific way. So even not just the practice of the culture, but the memory of the culture itself is important, and it'll be a much more inclusive way of looking at Peranakaners. So my answer is kind of short because a lot of it were covered by the the other two specialists earlier. So it's just this. It's really, to me, yes, biology is important, but it's to me very strongly defined by culture.
Thank you, Dr. Nala. Now, you brought up the issue about culture, which is, I think, something that is can be a bane, can be also your advantage here in the definition of being a Peranakan. You mentioned a bit also about the challenges faced when you talk about trying to adhere or trying to practice some of this, or trying to use culture as a basis of a marker or identification for this community. Now, how relevant is it? You mentioned that it may not work, but for you, Dr. Nala, how relevant is culture, language, costume, food that would continue to define a Peranakan or a Baba Nyonya for that matter in the years to come?
Okay, so well, yes, I do think it's very importantly defined by culture or the memory of these cultures. So they are kind of important in strengthening the identity, right? When people cease to practice them, when people cease to practice the food culture, the dressing culture, the language culture, then there's nothing really to differentiate us from the next Chinese person down the street. We're not anything. Like we don't know who we are then. So, but of course, I'm going to talk more about language because I'm biased, because I'm a linguist, so I focus on language a lot, right? So it's critically endangered, but it will always, remain relevant. It will always remain relevant to the culture. So I think I said in an interview elsewhere, so imagine losing the bit of language, then you wouldn't be able to celebrate some simple things like you call a gamjing a covered jar. Is it still a gamjing to you? Does it mean the same thing? It doesn't mean the same thing, does it? Or you say, the croissant, if you call it brooches, then what's so special about the croissant? Like, how do you denote that, special? So of all of these things, I focus on language the most and say that, it's important, it's relevant, just as other things as well. There are also other practices, of course, and other types of, ways of practicing the culture that hopefully will stay relevant, such as Wayang Peranakan. I know there was a session on it, or will be a session on it. Then, Tontang Sayang, for example, because it's just so evocative of Peranakaners. But all of this, why am I talking about all of these things? Because all of these things would be if not for the language. Like, you can't actually practice them, you can't actually celebrate them without the language. That's why I focus so much on talking about language. Yeah, but that's hopefully that half answers the question, because I kind of went on for my own tangent. But yeah, so happy to hear what other people say.
Good. Good that you take it on a linguistic level. Now, I will throw back this question to Baba Tian. Yeah, you mentioned that many people cannot relate to the Baba culture nowadays, but they still think that they are Baba Nyonya. How then, yeah, Baba Tian, do you think that a Baba or a Nyonya or a Peranakan can continue to call themselves one, or to be seen as one, if they just simply just forget or lost their culture?
I think what is most important for us today would be the awareness among ourselves. Yeah, because if let's say there is no living in a modern society, we have to admit that many of our identity markers that we used to have in the past is no longer a marker of our identity today. For instance, like the kebaya, it is an icon of our culture, but no longer a marker, because I always make a joke out of this. My museum staff in the Museum West put on kebaya more often than my mother. You see, so things like this would determine that, you know, self awareness is very important. That at least like my younger cousins nowadays, after the Little Nyonya, the hit drama series in Singapore, they all start to claim themselves, oh, I'm a Nyonya, I'm a Baba, you know, which I think is good. With that kind of awareness, it would actually create hope for our culture to continue to survive. If without that awareness, I think it would be even more difficult for our culture to continue. Like for example, they would not bother to wear kebaya, you know, even if we have family functions nowadays. Yeah, okay, I'm a Nyonya, I must, you know, put effort. How difficult it is, also they would put effort to actually dress in the kebaya and also sarung, and perhaps they would learn how to actually do the kasut mani and even cooking. For instance, they would put effort to buy recipe books or learn from their mothers, if not too late still, to learn how to cook maybe the buah keluar, you know, itim and a few other dishes. Yeah, or else they just grab a recipe book lah. Now it's quite easy, you know, to learn to cook. If there is no awareness at all, I don't think they would bother to cook buah keluar or itim or nasi ulam, for instance. So coming back to the question, I think awareness is most important in today's context, and that would actually give hope for the continuation of our culture and our entire community at large.
I'm going to throw this question also to Dr. Pui. How much has culture, or rather the practice of culture, impact the identity of the Peranakan community in the East Coast? Is there a trend in terms of diminishing practices, or are they still holding fast, or it's just that they just take things for granted, and therefore, you know, things will remain, and that the government will continue to support them to continue taking up this identity of being a Peranakan?
All right. Yeah, that's a very hot topic, and often the question that we've been throwing, because whenever we discuss about Peranakan as a social phenomenon or Peranakan heritage, they always kind of relate to the good old days, you know, in the 70s, in 80s, people wearing kebaya, listening to all those wayang kulit, things like that. But now the society has changed quite drastically since, well, you know, some of the heritage being minimized, you know, regulated, and also the way we interact with other people also become more and more, how to say, dispersed, because the Peranakan community also don't even stay in the single kampung anymore, right? So what, or maybe I can ask Alvin to share the slide of the Peranakanness in Kelantan to help me navigate and explain it in detail. Yeah, so as you can see, the Peranakanness of Kelantan Peranakan Chinese, like here, I divide into two categories lah, just for convenience of speak. The first category is the external layer of the ethnicity, means that those elements that you often use as a marker for your ethnic identity. So these are most of the time that you can see visually, yeah. Like for instance, the architecture, the appearance, phenotypes, I would say, still relevant because in Kelantan context especially, they are not only intermarried with the local Malays, but also the local Siamese. That's why physically we look slightly different, obviously, right? And the way we wear clothes, and also in terms of the food and foodways, we are very like localized, both Malay and Siamese. That also include the leisure or entertainment activities, like we enjoy wayang kulit, we play cockfighting, we keep rooster as pets, ikan laga, that kind of thing. And also in terms of language, it's not only they communicate in Hokkien, the localist Hokkien, which have a lot of influence from the Malay, Kelantanese Malay, and also Kelantanese Siamese, but also they are very well versed to the native level of fluency in terms of Malay language itself. And for some part of the community, those in the northern region of Kelantan, they are even trilingual, means that they can speak Siamese well. Actually, some of the older generation, they prefer to converse in Siamese instead of in Hokkien, especially when they got some hush-hush thing to discuss without exposing to the those people around there lah, right? So that is the external part of the marker. But in the inner layer of their ethnicity also retains a core of Chineseness, means that the Chinese tradition that they retain from generations to generation. This most of the time revolves around their worldview and also the pillars that supports the worldview. For instance, those main social institutions in the community, like for example, family and religion. Yeah, so their worldview and their pillars of the worldview will be, how to say, manifested through the customs and rituals that are meaningful throughout their cycle of life. Yeah, like for instance, the wedding, the birth, the death, and also the religious part. As you can see, like I put there some communal Taoism or Buddhism events because they are influenced by the Thailand's Theravada Buddhism also. Yeah, so but coming back to Cedric's question earlier on, of course, if you go to Kelantan now, you won't see this much of cultural practices anymore, especially with regards to the architecture. They don't have their own rumah kampung anymore. They have, of course, rumah terrace, and also the way they wear more westernized, less kain sarung, of course, less batik, and the eating way also they are more and more open to other choices, right? But that is the superficial part lah, I would say, because if you get to know this community well, right, the reason they manage to survive in such an Islamicized surrounding is that the communal spirit of the Peranakaners still remains strong. Yeah, I give you an example of every time religious events occurring at their kampong, they will make effort to go back. Like for example, the deity birthday, I would say, right? Okay, so other than that, also they make a lot of effort to come back to their hometowns whenever they can during the school holidays, during the like Banjena. Of course, they still have some limitation, but some people still try to go back. You know, so like what Dr. Nala said, the attachment is still very important. Attachment and also the memory that preserve them as Peranakaners, even though from the outer layer you might look like they have changed a lot because of modernization. Yeah, so I'm sure other Peranakan communities also will be similar to that way. Thank you.
On a related question, one of our viewers have asked, well, is there an estimate how many Kelantanese Peranakan Chinese?
Yeah, that's a good question. I also asked about that. But the problem is that in our census, right, our official statistic at the government level, they don't differentiate between the Peranakans and the non-Peranakans. But some scholars did try to make some effort to collect some statistics in their publication. I can say since Kelantan Chinese population is around 25,000, there's a recent publication that suggests around 18,000 to 20,000 are Peranakan Chinese of Kelantan. Yeah, so we can take that, give or take lah. But that's a good start. Okay.
Okay, Dr. Pui, having said that, issue about identifying oneself, this probably I will throw to all panelists. Yeah. Now, if there is a column in your national registry that would allow you to say that you are Peranakan, would you do so? And I know that would help a lot in census, but would it help in terms of national integration? Because you, instead of saying that you are one, like for example, Malaysian or Singaporean, you are dividing yourself into Malaysian Malaysian Chinese Peranakan Hokkien example. So, are you? I mean, if you are given the opportunity, would you like to have that column which states a Peranakan, and then, but by having that, would that help in national integration? So let's throw this to Tian, because I think Peranakan Association is spearheading this issue.
Putting him on the spot.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't know whether you guys know this or not, because my association actually is fighting for this to be implemented. We have, through the Ministry of National Unity, actually, so we have suggested these to be implemented to the Prime Minister, and then they are still processing it. However, we have not gotten any reply yet from the Prime Minister's office. If you ask me personally, I would say yes and no. Because why? Looking at the association's interest, of course, they would say, yes, we should do this, so that our next generation would be very much aware of their own identity, and they would also be recognized. Yeah, because if we don't do this, not every parents out there that are proud of their own identity and that would actually take the initiative to inform or expose or to create this awareness among their children that they are from the Baba Nyonya community. So with the help of this identification thing in our identity card, perhaps that would be the only way to make sure that there is this continuation. Although if they don't practice the culture, okay, like it's stated there, you are a Baba Nyonya in your identification card. Okay, that's number one. Now, if you talk about national unity, stuff like that, personally, I think we don't need all these. Yeah, but then again, you know, we are in this. We have to juggle between safeguarding our community's interests and at the same time also this national unity thing. Yeah, but of course, if you look at the Malaysian context, unless the Malaysian government decided to abolish this entire no race, we are all one Malaysian race, then perhaps okay, we don't need. But since they have all these, you know, you are Chinese, you are Malay, you are Indian, Kadazan, and so on, so perhaps why not? We Baba and Nyonya also have our own subcategory to just protect the self-interest of our own community. That is my take on this. Yeah.
Okay, you're lifted from your hot seat now. I'll throw I'll rotate this hot seat to Dr. Pui. What's your take? Kelantanese and the Terengganu Peranakans? Would that help, number one, also in helping you to to be able to get a number of the number of Peranakans in both states, and likewise, would that help very much in national integration?
No lah, Cedric. Maybe I because there's so many type of Peranakan in Malaysia, right? Maybe I give a more general answer. Is that okay?
Sure, no problem.
All right. Okay, thanks. So, from the historical and inter-ethnic relation perspective, this Peranakan phenomenon takes shape through the formation of various Peranakan communities in the country, and the display of their Peranakanness that bridging diversity is actually already like being recognized by the government, by the society, you know. One of the recent example is the official recognition of kebaya by UNESCO as representative of intangible cultural heritage. But other than kebaya, also we also have wangkang, right? Wangkang or ongchun ceremony, dondang sayang, and pantun. Those are the elements of national heritage that are recognized internationally that are part of Peranakan heritage also. Yeah, so in the social cultural standpoint, as Peranakan has been recognized as an important success story of how our multi-ethnic society used to be back then, you know, when we were able to mingle with each other freely and negotiate our differences amiably through everyday interaction just between themselves without any external coercion. Yeah. So even today also, from the socio-cultural standpoint also, the Peranakan relatively do receive a warmer reception in inter-ethnic relation by many other ethnic groups in society, including the majority group. Yeah, in comparison to some other minority ethnic groups that we know of. Some say it's because of the Peranakan's campur-campur nature, the rojak nature that makes everybody can relate to that. Yeah. So in a way, we have been like recognized the status of Peranakan is there But if you are asking from the legal standing, the idea to have the status of Peranakan is commendable, of course, but naturally not as straightforward as it seems for several reasons. So the definition and the implementation of the idea needs to be vigorously considered if it were to take place, right? This includes, I give you an example, how to categorize the status of Peranakan, like Kian mentioned just now, the status of Peranakan in our official documentation, because we use the 4-category system of Malay, Chinese, Indian, and others, right? So my first presentation earlier on, I've touched about that we have Malay-based Peranakan, we have Chinese-based Peranakan, we have Indian-based Peranakan, we have Portuguese European-based Peranakan. So in which category that we can include the Peranakan status? So another thing to consider is that some Peranakan communities already have their Peranakan status elevated in a way. Yeah, like for example, the Peranakan Jawi in Kedah and Penang, they are legally not differentiated from the Malays at the authority level governance. Yeah, in their IC, they are Malay. The Peranakan Serani or Kristang also elevated to Bumiputra status decades ago. Although it may not be as full Bumiputra status as the Malays and Orang Asli, it does allow the Kristang the access to some economic perks, like participating in Amanah Saham scheme, for example. So when it comes to Chinese-based and Indian-based Peranakan, the elephant in the room will be how to distinguish the Peranakans from the non-Peranakans, who are the mainstream of the Chinese and Indian population in Malaysian demography. Yeah. So I don't want to be the one throwing a wet blanket here, but I think it's not sufficient to only preach to the choir. We still need to introduce and advocate about Peranakan communities and the Peranakanness to the public, especially to the younger generation in society I teach a university compulsory course, the appreciation of ethics and civilization of Malaysian society, and I can tell you not many students have heard about the Peranakan. Yeah, so we also don't know enough about all the Peranakan communities in the country. like I mentioned earlier on, the Peranakan Samsam in Kedah and right? Our friends in Terengganu also, they never know they are part of the Peranakan umbrella until they initiate a study about themselves, because they keep hearing how, you look like Baba Nyonya in Melaka, but we are not Peranakan, they say, because they don't use the word Peranakan there, right? So they just found out that a type of Peranakan community just few years ago, and it's as recent as 2016 that we found out the existence of Terengganu Peranakan Chinese community, not limited in rural area as we first thought. They also exist in the urban area of Kuala Terengganu. Yeah, so it's like continuous advocacy about Peranakan and how they are substantial to national integration. I think it still needs to be prioritized with or without the legal status of Peranakan. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Very much. Very, very much. Not easy to negotiate, yeah. A lot of issues here in Malaysia, yeah, especially in terms of acceptance. Now, I'm not very sure about Singapore's take on this. How much do you think this would impact Singapore, Dr. Nala?
Well, it's going to be complicated, right? For all the reasons mentioned for Malaysia as well, similar issues would exist. But instead of focusing on a box to tick, I guess I'll focus on, the notion of Peranakanness itself being encompassing the notion of hybridity, which should actually help us bridge gaps and not divide. So I kind of like celebrating the notion of Peranakanness. So hybridity, I remember long ago, when the late Baba Peter Wee was still alive from Peranakan Association Singapore, long ago, he used to tell me his favorite analogy for Peranakan hybridity was the itik team. So itik team, he says, is perfect analogy because you have to use Western brandy, so there are elements of Western culture in it. You have to use Assam, like a tamarind, which is a kind of local to the region. And what else did you have to use? So and various other things, and you have to use gamchai. Yeah, very Chinese. So that was the perfect melting pot of gamchai, basically itik team. So I like the analogy very much, and the culture really it symbolizes the best of all of these various groups. So it's evolved from a lot of mutual respect, from sharing between groups that are different. So if anything, Peranakanness is an emblematic, is emblematic of celebrating diversity, where all the best bits come together to give something really unique to the region. So that's my very short answer, because it's almost dinner time, just in case everyone is hungry. So yeah, short answer.
I love itik team. Yeah, you just reminded me dinner is just around the corner. Yeah. Okay. I think that about wrap up the whole session for today about the identity issue about the Baba Nyonya community in specific, but also Peranakan in general. I think I would like to thank our three panelists very, very much for coming on board today. What do you say, Alvin?
Just before we end, just a few comments from our viewers today. Eric Tan has just mentioned, which is quite apt. Peranakan is a cultural identity, not a racial identity. I think that is a good point. Thank you very much, Eric. And very much what Dr. Pui mentioned earlier on, just like Abaya, which is being recognized by UNESCO, is an intangible cultural heritage. Yes. Okay, that's a good point. So so there's lots of interest among our viewers as well. It could be extended to the younger ones across all ethnic backgrounds, which is tertiary education and all that. Peranakanness, as mentioned by Dr. Pui, is much distinct based on the locality of the population itself, which is very much what was mentioned earlier on. Thank you very much for your views. Yep. All right.
Thank you very much for coming on board, Baba Lee and Tien, Dr. Pui, and also Dr. Nala. I'm so happy that all three of you get to meet for the first time and also to get to share with us within this short 1 hour. I know it's not enough. I know we can go on for the next 3-4 hours and still not settled with the issue about identity.
No conclusion.
No. But I know dinner is very important for everybody, and also we also would like to share with them what's going to happen tomorrow as well. So before that, thank you very much to all three. Appreciate your kind sharing today and for coming together with us. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, our panelists. That's the end of the program. Certainly hope all our viewers enjoyed it. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us, joining in the festival. We'd also like to thank my co-host Baba Cedric Tan for especially hosting this particular session and in this festival. Please join us tomorrow, where we have 5 more programs for this year's Virtually Peranakan Fest. We're starting from 1 p.m. going all the way till 6 p.m. tomorrow. So kamsia everyone for joining us on Virtually Peranakan Fest 2024, organized by Peranakan Sayang. My name is Baba Alvin Un. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.